Hello. I got fascinated when I listened to President Obama talk on education on November 4th, and I really enjoyed listening to these four standards that he has outlined, and especially the fact that he says he wants to remove firewall laws that judge a teacher by performance, and to let innovative ideas be injected. And out of the four standards that he talked about, I'm going to pick two. The first standard that he talked about, I gave him an A plus, and the other standard, I gave him an F. And the other two standards, they are all meshed in. I'm going to tell you why I chose to give him A plus for the first standard that he talked about, when he mentioned that we need to develop standards that are internationally acceptable, for teachers, and not to judge teachers or students using standardized tests. I gave him an A plus for that. And in 2006, I did some action research together with a student, Ashley Aaron, an undergraduate student at Georgia College and State University, and we looked at comparing impoverished schools versus suburban rich schools, and we came up with this article. You can find it online, and it's called Present Day Students, also known as Victims of Standardized Tests. President Obama mentioned that we need to look at how teachers can solve tasks, teamwork, encourage entrepreneurship, and improve knowledge and skills, and also to improve critical thinking skills. Now, some of us might say, why did he get an F on the other measure? On this one here, when President Obama talked of injecting billions of funds to schools or to education, and only states would have to compete for those funds, I definitely gave him an F for that. And also, especially when President Obama said they are bad teachers, we have to remove bad teachers from the classroom and even fire the superintendents, the janitors, the teachers, shut down schools that are called bad schools with bad teachers. Why would I decide to give an F to the president in terms of that point? The reason I chose to give him an F is that I always believe that teachers, very special teachers, we are you have to have a calling, and it's a passion for one. If you look at how much is invested just to graduate a teacher, that is a lot of investment. Instead, I would encourage the president to look at hostile environments that are created for teachers, hostile environments through to impoverishment of the school system. How about getting rid of the board of education, whereby we have people who don't even have any clue or any philosophy or any doctorate or any master's or bachelor's degree in education? I know, as a lawyer, Mr. President, on the bench of lawyers, you have to be a lawyer to sit on the bench of lawyers. But when it comes to education in the USA, you'll find people who are on the board of education have nothing to do with education. So I would beg to differ to say, is the hostile environment, for instance, even if you were to look at the article, this is an article that was written by a Caucasian student who was horrified when she went to this predominantly black neighborhood school where it was so impoverished, and mostly those are the ones who end up being hit by labels like bad schools or through standardized testing or bad teachers because they are so poor. You'll find that instead of having to give states that are competing, how about giving every teacher, the funds? Because some schools are structurally poor, and so give everybody. Because if you are to pinpoint a bad teacher, you won't find, but it's the hostile environment that is created, and children are already traumatized. I will tell you this example. When I went to visit this school with my students, and we went to this class where the students were called special ed, and it's all, you find mostly children who end up being in the special ed are predominantly black. I found this young boy, and if you look at this guy here, he is not as smiling as this guy here. So when I went into that classroom, and this boy was just mad, and his special education class, and I said to him, "How are you?" And he said, "Okay." And I said, "Are you happy?" And he said, "No." So those are some of the things that we want to discuss, to say, when you impoverish an environment, children are going to fight, teachers are going to be frustrated, then they end up having a label of bad teacher. How about to offer teachers opportunities for a variety of different instructional experiences? Let teachers note that they are all valued, not to punish a teacher and label them as bad teacher. Structure real life situation based on demographics to help both the teachers and the children to experience feeling of success. Because once you say a bad teacher, bad school, that lowers self-esteem. And it goes back, you also mentioned that you have to compete internationally. I go back to my case where I say, when you put an embargo on a country like Zimbabwe, can you imagine what is happening to the school child when he's traumatized by poverty? Can you imagine what happens to the teacher in an impoverished environment? It creates a hostile environment. So let's not base education on pumping a lot of money. You mentioned that Delaware is already following an example. And earlier on, I had read on C-SPAN that the University of Delaware, that's where your campaign manager, David Plouffe, is doing some projects there. And 2 weeks later, you mentioned that Delaware is doing some. So I imagine that it could be University of Delaware that you had in mind. But at the same time, I've had experiences in rural schools of Delaware where the black child is marginalized because of poverty. So many black children are failing praxis exams because something has to be done that will improve the state of the poor child. And usually you will find those who are in special ed, they end up being the black children. And so I would encourage you that we need, instead of putting threats, thank you, and we hope you will treat the teacher with respect. Thank you.